This was obviously a very difficult situation simply because my views are far outside the common views of what people have today in Scotland. It tends to be that more people down south in England understand me a lot better than people up here. If I speak about, because what I support is the free market, so if I speak about the free market, people down south in England understand me a lot better. For those of you who have been subscribed to me long enough will remember my old videos, and I had made Scottish independence videos, and one of them was the very first Scottish independence video that I made. Some of you may have seen it, others will not. Basically I made a video and I was getting heaps of basically abuse. Now of course my political and economic views do not fit into this country. It's just a sad fact. A lot of people do not understand me. They seem to think that the free market was the cause of the Great Depression. That's what they believe. They believe that the free market was basically what caused the banking crisis of 2008. Or for some strange reason they seem to believe all the myths that you hear about the Industrial Revolution. And that's why I wanted to do the videos on the Industrial Revolution, to give the alternative information that I learned from the likes of the Mises Institute, etc., to push out the alternative information about that period in history. It's frustrating simply because the Labour Party, to be viewed as something positive within that time period, is just unbelievable. And it tells you that, and it's hard to word it in the right way, it's hard to word it in a way that you don't mean to offend anyone, but you know, how do you word it without offending people, you know? It's a very difficult thing to do, because let's just say the people did not understand, they don't understand the economics, they don't understand the history, therefore they seem to view that the Labour Party was something special in this time period. It's not all Labour Party's fault, because trust me, the Tory government, the Conservatives basically, were themselves partly responsible for the mess. And they were going along with the heavy nationalisation, and it's just, these people, I don't think they realise that is communism. That heavy nationalisation, that putting everything in the hands of government, is communism. And then you get certain people who come out and say, you know, what's wrong with communism? What's wrong with it? They don't get it. So of course, people took offence to my views and why I voted no. I get called a Judas, a traitor, all sorts under the sun. And seeing that people like, later on, people like J.K. Rowling were getting the threats, and of course it wasn't just people like me, it did reassure myself, because then I knew that people would sit up and take notice of that sort of attitude. It's very much anti-democratic in itself. There was this picture I remember, and it was a voting booth, and it was saying something along the lines of vote yes or else, a threat, simply based on their passion of such and such. They don't understand that with their attitude of it's my way or no way, it's you know, take my way and we will force our way upon you, and it's no way else. If you don't live by our way, you know, don't live in Scotland. That's more or less what they were saying. I had a lot of comments where people were saying, you're a traitor. why do you live in this country, or why don't you just move south, or why don't you just move out of Scotland? In other words, if you do not accept their views, if you do not, live by their views, you have to get out of the country. You have to get out of the country. In other words, them forcing their views for what Scotland should be like, because apparently to them in their head, they're more Scottish than you are because of what they have views, because of what they support. So in other words, if you don't support socialism, if you don't support their views, you're not, Scottish. And it was this attitude that caused such problems and divide, and it was even on the other side of the argument, where people who are staunchly proud to be British, and all the back and forth nonsense, etc., which it's sad to say that it caused a lot of division in this country. But yeah, I got a lot of abuse, and a lot of that abuse really stemmed mostly from people's misunderstanding of economics, and it will always sadly be that way, because it's people really do not get it. They don't. People in society just they are oblivious. You say that you support an alternative to the NHS, and all of a sudden it's planted in their mind. For I can't word it in any other way, to put it nicely. I can't word it in any other way. If I could, I would. Because I don't mean to sound nasty, but these people are so narrow-minded. They have no concept of an alternative. Their idea of alternative is extremely high costs and people being neglected, and it being the American healthcare system today or the past 100 years. That's it. And as soon as they have that in their head, of that being the alternative, their mind shuts off. That's it. That's the end of the story. There's the alternative. Therefore, their argument is, it's the NHS or nothing. It's the be all and end all. And that's what I mean. Because when you try to, express your views, when they ask you about your views, and if they don't understand what capitalism is, which sadly people don't, most people do not. Well, up here at least, most people up here do not. And when you say that you defend the free market, when you say you defend capitalism, they believe that you are someone greedy, self-centered, you're nasty, you're evil, you're the devil, you're David Cameron, you're this, you're that, you're a cronyist, you're a fascist, you're an imperialist, you're a colonialist, you're, goodness sake, it's just. And that's the sad thing, because how do you argue with these people? You then try to express your views, and you try to explain to them capitalism is not imperialism, capitalism is not colonialism, capitalism is not mercantilism, it's not corporatism, it's, the free market's not about that. When you try to explain these things, they shut you down with more narrow-mindedness that All you have to say is that you support capitalism, and basically you're the devil. You are the devil. That's it. You're a nasty, evil person who wishes to exploit the people and have people on low-paid wages working endless hours for such little pay. And if you dare try to argue that, they will use the argument that, oh, you think you're so special. You think you're so special that you know better than the majority do. And that's a very difficult thing, because people are stuck in the mind that just because the majority believe something, that somehow the majority are right. You could obviously sit and ask yourself the question, where did things go wrong? Why was it that Scotland had went from being the world leader of medicine and education to a country that's become sadly so brainwashed with the idea that we need socialism for a right balance? Or they somehow believe that, of course, that socialism's the right way forward. Why did Scotland become like that? And I don't blame the people specifically. I don't blame the people. I blame the government. I blame the mainstream media and people. The main argument that people had for why they wanted Scotland to separate from the United Kingdom, the main argument that you were getting was the message that Westminster government became self-serving. And the problem they don't get, they find it so hard to understand, and it honestly is. It's like watching a dog that chases its own tail round and round and round and round in circles it goes. And these people are exactly like this. They basically demand for basically everything of basically the truth, but they don't like the truth, so they never accept the truth. Do you understand? They don't accept the truth. You try to tell them the truth, they don't like it, so they shut their mind off and they continue down the path of essentially what they're complaining about. They expect a utopia. They think it's just a case of change the government. They think it's just a case of, and this is why they vote for the same thing every 4 years, and they get the same thing every 4 years, because they don't get it. They just don't get it. And no matter how much you try to explain to them, they still don't get it. If telling truth to people was easy, this would have been over with a long time ago. But it's not. Because people shut their mind off from the truth. And this is the prime example, because when you say to them that collectivism will always lead to serfdom and the government will always go on the path of its own, they just block their mind off. And they continue to follow down the road of essentially what they complain about. And that is essentially what you had with a lot of the people who were voting yes. Because they were saying about Westminster's this, Westminster's that, Westminster's self-serving, and we'll get a Scottish government that will serve us. We'll finally have that Scottish government that will serve the Scottish people. And they were basically ramming the SNP down our throats. 2 years ago. 2 whole years ago, I made the argument, and I stated clearly, and I made the argument, I says, don't worry about it. Just you wait till 2 years' time when the referendum's over. Regardless of where Scotland goes, regardless of whether Scotland remains part of the United Kingdom or not, You watch. If the Scottish National Party gain any sort of powers or whatever, you watch how self-serving they are. You watch, give it time, and you'll start to see people complaining about the Scottish National Party, and they'll start pointing to them and calling them the yellow Tories or whatever. And I said that. I made the argument. I said long before. I said, give it time. You watch these people. Right now they're on a high. Right now they're through the roof. But as soon as they're voting for that party, you watch them lose faith. And there's a reason for it, and they don't understand it, and I do. The reason why I do understand it is because their expectations is so far outside the basis of economic reality, it cannot exist. Therefore, politicians cannot fulfill the promises that they make to the people.